ANDOR is a masterpiece. I think we can all agree on that. And now with that out of the way, ANDOR is also an enigma. While being so far removed from the tone of the Star Wars saga, and even, I'd argue, the tone of Rogue One, the film it spins off from, ANDOR is dark, gritty, just like Band of Brothers. Just kidding. We don't want that. But it's not just dark and gritty. It's a grim, depressing look at the pervasive and eroding nature of fascism on a society and how to find hope within that. This really isn't a space opera this time like the original films. But this is Star Wars centralized, and we know that Star Wars is much more than what's on screens here. And that's what ANDOR matches, in my opinion, perfectly. ANDOR feels like it was plucked right out of the 1990s Star Wars Expanded Universe, now titled Legends, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Now, ANDOR has lots of superficial Legends connections, like Cassian's blaster being an MW-20 Briar pistol, a design that hails back to 2015's Battlefront and was included there as a reference to Kyle Katarn's Briar pistol, Katarn being responsible for stealing the Death Star plans in the Legends video game Dark Forces, kind of a Legends Cassian. But more on that later. Another surface-level Legends reference is the presence of Mon Mothma's daughter and her name. In Legends, it was established in the Dark Empire sourcebook that Mon Mothma had a daughter named Leida, spelled L-I-E-D-A, though she never appeared in any stories. Andor's depiction of Mon's daughter was Leida, spelled L-E-I-D-A, though she was a far different character from even the little we know about her Legends counterpart. And yet, Mon's son Jobin, as far as we know, doesn't exist in canon. But these types of Legends or canon EU connections are often not more than Easter eggs for the fans that even know what the Dark Empire sourcebook is, or sometimes they're even just coincidences, like Cyril's similarities to several Legends characters. But where I think ANDOR truly shines is the way that it pulls elements of the Legends timeline into its story that aren't just one-off baseline things like a planet or a blaster, though it does that well. ANDOR pulls in concepts, story beats, trends, and even entire events and themes from Legends and uses them as a fertile base for its storytelling rather than a cherry on top of an already good story. And as we get into these bigger connections, I first need to introduce you to West End Games. West End Games, or WEG as I'll refer to them in this video, were the game company that produced the Star Wars role-playing game from 1987 to 1998. Yes, contrary to popular belief, the Star Wars RPG universe preceded Timothy Zahn's landmark foundational Thrawn trilogy, itself being the foundation for those three novels, particularly the Imperial Sourcebook. And the Imperial Sourcebook is where we'll begin. In this book, author Greg Gordon digs into the inner workings of the Galactic Empire and how every single branch of it functioned, providing a foundation for RPG campaigns and stories. This iconic flowchart depicting the structure of power within the Empire comes from the Imperial Sourcebook, and shows just how granular this got in these WEG books. But what we're focusing on here is mainly the CompNor section. CompNor, or the Commission for the Preservation of the New Order, I've always thought that acronym was wacky, was the branch of the Empire that ensured Imperial power remained all-encompassing, comprising of many subgroups, including the ISB. To say that the Imperial Security Bureau plays a role in ANDOR is an understatement. The ISB fuels the entire storyline, and its structure, politics, and complicated role in the everyday existence of the Empire are essentially all from somewhere in the Imperial Sourcebook. The ISB in Legends was an intelligence and law enforcement organization created to be the Emperor's personal hand in the galaxy's politics, deeply dedicated to maintaining broad loyalty across even internal branches of the government. One element of ANDOR that I found particularly reminiscent of the WEG ISB was the focus on sector politics in the organization. So much of the internal conflict in ANDOR's ISB plots, especially in the conference room scenes, were centered around the jurisdiction each supervisor had over their individual sectors, something directly mentioned in WEG materials. The ISB conference room itself has been confirmed to be the investigations branch of the ISB in canon, one of the branches seen in the flowchart from earlier. But it doesn't stop there. Almost everything the ISB does in ANDOR is firmly rooted in what's established about them or their rivals in Imperial intelligence in the WEG era. And it's so much more than a reference. It's a foundation. For example, Season 2's ISB tactical unit even somewhat falls in line with the comp force of Legends, not only in their role, but in their uniforms, with smaller, helmetless white armor and black body gloves underneath. On the Rebel side of things, the origins of the rebellion were first truly communicated in the Rebel Alliance sourcebook from 1990. In it, the loose network of Rebel cells connected via scattered networks across an Imperial-controlled galaxy was established. This book dives deep into the fact that senators were the initial method of organizing the initial Rebel forces, particularly Senators Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, and later added onto this list was Garm Bel Iblis of Corellia. Something else first mentioned in this book, though, was the Gorman Massacre, the centerpiece of the second season of ANDOR. While almost everything we know about Gorman from ANDOR was created for the series, the fact that there was a massacre there that spurred on more Rebel activity has been part of Star Wars for decades, though there are some elements that have been switched around in its telling, such as the time it occurred. In the Rebel Alliance sourcebook and other later legend sources that are also obscure, the Gorman Massacre happened in 19 BBY, and was described as the result of one Captain Tarkin landing his vessel on protesters in the Gorman spaceport, killing many without prosecution. This hardly matches the Gorman Massacre of ANDOR, but instead matches the show's Tarkin Massacre, an event that was created to somehow maintain both the canon and Legends depictions of the Gorman Massacre in a single timeline, using the Tarkin Massacre as an important part of the second one's motivation and backstory. It's all so intentionally and intelligently woven into the story and world building of Gorman, and to me it worked incredibly well. Next, we have the political fallout of the massacre though, surrounding Mon Mothma. In Legends, the fallout was the formation of the initial Rebel network, and it didn't have much to do with Mon aside from her involvement. But there's one paragraph that feels like it was pretty much taken from ANDOR. It reads, from Mon's point of view, "In fact, when Emperor Palpatine decided to arrest me for treason, one of his lapdog senators informed Bail beforehand. Bail, while pretending to gloat with the swine, sent one of his men to warn me. I got off planet about 2 minutes ahead of the ISB agents." So there was no speech in Legends like there is in Rebels and ANDOR, but the idea that Mon Mothma barely escaped the Senate from the ISB shortly after the Gorman Massacre, it's all from Legends. And in a broader sense, these types of conflicts, the political intrigue and espionage-focused plot beats, were a cornerstone of WEG Star Wars, and feel so deeply present in ANDOR. Like the Mothma escape, I feel like a big element of ANDOR that really reflects WEG Star Wars is the central mission during each arc. The Ferrix Cataclysm, the Aldhani heist, the prison break, the events on Mina Rao, everything on Gorman, and then Cleia's rescue. Every single one of these instances feels like an RPG scenario set in WEG Star Wars. And speaking of Mina Rao, the idea of an agri-world, a planet completely dedicated to the production of food, comes directly from WEG Star Wars as well, and of course inspired by other sci-fi, with the world building of Mina Rao fitting perfectly into what they established back then. Going back to Ferrix, the planet and everything having to do with Preax Morlana is textbook WEG Star Wars as well, thanks to the wonderful 70s Han Solo trilogy by Brian Daley. Daley's Star Wars books were the first novels written in the galaxy far, far away after Splinter of the Mind's Eye, so they were prequels to A New Hope, and released before even The Empire Strikes Back. Because it was so early on, Daley was barred from using the Empire in his stories. Pretty unthinkable, right? So in order to provide a suitable threat for Han and Chewie, Daley created the Corporate Sector, a corporate-controlled area of the Northeastern Galaxy. And accordingly, over 10 years later, WEG published the Corporate Sector sourcebook, expanding on the region and cementing it into the wider EU. Andor's Preax Morlana, in its simultaneously established free trade sector, feels like it's taken directly from this sourcebook in what we see of how it runs, and it's in the same part of the galaxy too. The Corporate Sector sourcebook describes the nature of the corporations of the galaxy existing within this region as almost partners with the Empire, still under their jurisdiction, yet given more freedom as a concession for supporting the proliferation of Imperial ideology. Along these lines, the corporate sector was policed by private security forces who were often deeply corrupt and served the interests of shareholders above all else. All of this strikingly similar to the corporate police we see run by Premor in the first arc of Andor Season 1. And this was all made more explicitly clear by the Acolyte's visual guide, which reintroduced the founding document to the corporate sector from Legends, the Galactic Corporate Policy League, with Preax Morlana this time as a signatory. But did you know that Cassian Andor himself was in Legends? Well, kind of. In the short story Interlude at Darknell, Senator Garm Bel Iblis was told about the Death Star plans by a rebel spy going by the code name Aach. We never learn his real name, but do learn that he was the growing rebellion's top messenger and worked for Bail Organa. He's incredibly capable and speaks with an intense dedication to the cause. And wouldn't you know it, in the 2016 Rogue One visual guide, Cassian Andor, the man himself, was described as using the codename Aach as a senatorial contact on the very same planet, Darknell. And when I read Interlude at Darknell for the first time, aware of this connection, visualizing Cassian as Aach made his pivotal scene work so well. Props to author Pablo Hidalgo for making this connection happen, and giving us a reason to have Cassian Andor need a Legends tab on his Wikipedia page. Now, while the Aach situation is mostly just a fun connection that kinda works, it leads to one of my favorite things about Andor. So much of the 90s Star Wars EU, when not focusing on the main OT heroes, honed in on the normal people of the Rebellion, Empire, Underworld, and New Republic. And yes, of course, this was positively central to West End Games Star Wars. Rebel spies have been the subject of so many WEG Star Wars campaigns that having a story that's completely about the journey of a rebel spy is really special, and cements Andor as topically quite close in proximity to Legends and the characters that it chose to focus on. Like, seriously, I can picture almost every single character from Andor having their own RPG character spread, with stats and art and everything. The backstory's so well communicated, so fertile for storytelling, it just all feels very RPG, very Star Wars, and very well done. The nature of an expanded universe is right there in the name. It exists to expand the universe, to take what we know and explain it on a deeper level. While telling a story, use your curiosity and show us where the galaxy's food comes from, especially supplying to planets without farmland like Coruscant. Show us a grocery store where characters might go just to grab a snack. Show us a prison and what they do there. Show us a beach and the types of aliens you'd see lounging there. And show us the people who work on the ground in the causes that the movies feature. The kind of person who would serve the Empire and relish in it. The kind of person who finds purpose in the rebellion. These types of things were so efficiently explored in the expanded universe, and still are in books and comics being published today. But Andor is the first time that I really feel like I'm seeing it on screen. There are elements of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan and The Acolyte and every other show that kind of fit this description, but nothing does it with as much care as Andor. The same amount of care that I find in the 90s role-playing game corner of the Star Wars universe. Whether you can admit it or not, Andor deeply reflects the absolute best of the Legends expanded universe in not only its subject matter, but the way it chooses to tell a story. It thoroughly expands the universe, not just taking place in it, but intentionally and purposefully choosing to represent aspects we haven't seen that connect to aspects we have. It just also happens to do that while telling a relevant, political, deep, poetic, mythological, and strikingly human story about persistence and the spirit of rebellion. And that story is just as much dependent on the foundations on which it's built, even just philosophically. So no. I don't think live-action Star Wars stories should simply rely on the best ideas from expanded materials for their plots, or just adapt EU stuff. Of course not. Anyone who's seen my AI response video could tell you that. The Acolyte, in my opinion, does the Legends connections better than Andor, but its story was nowhere near as strong, so it doesn't land as well, even if the second season and maybe third looked like they might have done so. Andor doesn't just pull in EU ideas, or WEG ideas. Andor treats the source material, the original movies, the same way that the best of the EU did, as a foundation, a jumping off point for incredible stories that have so much to say about things other than Star Wars, with a healthy dose of a desire to explain how the universe works while doing so. You can do both. You can respect the EU, using its ideas, while also telling a new and original story that says something about Star Wars, yes, but also about the world that we live in, like the original films did, like the best of the EU did. Andor shows us that it's possible. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and a special thanks to my loyal subscribers for voting for this video topic in my posts tab. Make sure to subscribe and like for more videos like this, covering the less explored aspects of the Star Wars galaxy. My reading recommendation for this video is the aforementioned Interlude at Darknell. It's great, very Andor-like, and it's included in the book Tales from the New Republic, which, like all the Tales books, also contains 10 other stories, some of which are my favorites in Legends. And just for you guys, I've included some links in the description in case you want to buy the book. I don't have any kind of affiliate link or anything, I just want you to have a good book. It's not more than $10 really anywhere, and if you find a used one, that's even better. You should buy it. You should buy it. Tales from the New Republic. You should buy it.